just like an interview thing that we do, and then I taught a class, and then I just ran in here. So,
good. That's all
but it's so good to meet you.
Likewise. What a beautiful congregation.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was saying, like,
When you're talking, you can keep the mask on.
Yeah, and I just took a COVID test, so.
yes, that's
Okay.
So
The newest things that we changed the most recently was that HIAS. We're doing this, right?
that's how to be. That one?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the same that we've done. Don't forget that one section.
Oh yeah.
That's
At
no
a certain
problem.
point, we'll go back there for a second on that song. If you see my eyes glazing over, just kind of point to where you are, like D.
It's just this one spot where I sing and
Shabbat Shalom to everyone who's joining us online. We'll get started with our service in just a couple of minutes.
I think that's the only new ones are the HIAS new.
Yeah. And you'll have the music, so I'll just look over your
Yes.
shoulder for keys.
For
That's all.
everything.
That's really the only thing I needed.
Okay.
And you got the new ones that I sent you?
I did. I got, well, just the one. The woman note.
Yeah. Did you not get the?
The other one we talked about? I'm blinking now. Oh, Justice Bones. No.
You didn't get the score?
No. I might have, and not in the second or two.
I don't. Check your text. Oh, okay.
Can I put it when we do it? Can I put it here? Can I put it on the phone? Okay.
Do you have?
I don't get email on here.
Can I airdrop it to you?
Yes, let's try that.
Yeah, there it is.
Are you guys ready for us to let everyone in?
Absolutely.
Sure.
What's that? I know, it's so sweet.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you did. Yeah, and the class too. How did it go? That's. I mean, anything goes. Like. Oh no, I did not see it, but let's do it.
And then from there, build what the concept is.
That's great. Give me the.
It really is a
Give me the plug.
Yeah, and so that way, if
Drinks are later.
Start?
Ready? Yeah.
Or A. I usually do it in A. Yeah.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Are you able to hear me on this microphone? No? I'll tell you what, I'll do this one. Shabbat Shalom, is that better?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll do this one. So that was actually a test, just to make sure everyone was listening. No, all right. I think that one of the things that we come together for Shabbat, one of the things that we need in Shabbat is not just the opportunity to rest and to breathe, to stop from the week, but to have an opportunity to step back as well. In fact, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel once said that we should each live our lives as if it were a work of art. Each one of our actions, each day a different stroke on the canvas. And his colleague, Mordechai Kaplan, drew on that inspiration and that image and said, yes. And Shabbat is that moment when, as an artist, we take a step back to examine the brushwork, the colors, the image that has emerged from our work, and examined what we not only have created, but what we might create in the days to come. This Shabbat, my hope is that we will have the opportunity to rest and to stop, to look back on the week past, and to have an opportunity to think a little bit about our world as it moves forward. And so this particular Shabbat is Kol HaNeshama Shabbat. We'll have the opportunity to rest, to offer music. We often, I want to give a heads up for anyone who might be a little bit new, this is our more experimental Shabbat, so there'll be a couple of things that we kind of do a little bit outside of the box this particular week. And after our service this evening, we'll have the opportunity to take some time to think about things moving forward. As we have our guest speaker from HIAS, we'll have more of an introduction later on, but to learn and to think about the refugee crisis taking place in Ukraine, taking a moment to step back and to learn about how our lives might be a source of comfort, how we might do a little bit of work to alleviate some of the pain for those on the other side of our same small globe. Well, just as we are together this particular Shabbat for rest, for reflection, and for inspiration for action forward, we also are here together to celebrate. And so right here at the beginning of our service, as we begin our holiday of Shabbat, I want to invite, if there is anyone who has a particular celebration this week, anything that they might be celebrating in this week, either, I know it's not for Shabbat, so not birthdays, nothing along those lines, but anything that they might have as a particular moment of light, I want to invite them to join me. So come on up. Purim is coming up, which is it's Zman Simchatenu, the time of our joy, right? So even if it's Purim, thank you, Cheryl, to come on up and help us light the Shabbat candles as we begin this holiday of Shabbat together. Don't be shy. Come on up. Anyone else who's celebrating, come on up.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Good job. We continue with a special blessing for this day, Ma Yafeh Hayom. How beautiful is this day? Continue on page 10 of our prayer books.
Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom.
Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, and the task accomplished? Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time. Contain the retreat of the hours and days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for today. Let me find peace these 24 hours. And let me enter into a quiet world on this holiday. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Continue on page 12.
La
We continue this Shabbat with a poem offered to us from the Kabbalists of Tzfat, looking out at the beautiful world, the beautiful day of Shabbat. They couldn't help but draw the image of a wedding. Two people bringing their lives together for the very first time. And so with our prayer, we have the image of a bride as Shabbat, here to join us on her wedding day. So not yet, but when we get to the final verse of our blessing, our prayer, I'm going to invite us to rise and turn to the door through which we entered our sanctuary, welcoming Shabbat into this sanctuary as if she were here to celebrate with us on her wedding day. Page 20.
Kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala. Shabbat nekavela, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmi anu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, Hashem ul tiferet v'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela. Hitoreri, ki ba'orech kumi ori, uri shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela. Boi v'shalom ma'ateret bala, Gam besimcha uvetzola, toch emuneam segula, boi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela.
We continue as one community, turning to page 28, calling to one another, knowing that this evening is not quite the same without each and every voice in it. And so we offer together as one the words of Baruch Hu, page 28.
Lai 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch atah Adonai. Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim. B'chokhma poteach she'arim uvitvona mishane itim umachalif et hazmanim misader et hakochavim b'mishmeroteim berakia kirtzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or uma'avir yom umevi layla umavdil ben yom uben layla Adonai tzavaot shemo el chai v'kayam Tamid yimloch alenu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai. Hama'ariv. Arabim.
This is an hour of change, and we stand uncertain on the border. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back or cross over? Of change, and we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back? Over.
Page 32. Shema Yisrael Adonai Please be seated. We continue together with the words we find when justice burns.
It might be.
Mourning. Page 117.
When justice burns like a flaming fire, and love evokes a willing sacrifice to the last full measure of selfless devotion with righteousness and truth. We believe.
Demonstrates our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness.
Your goodness enters our lives, and we begin to change the world, and you live in our hearts, and we behold your presence, through righteousness and truth, righteousness and truth, righteousness and truth, we believe.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe today what we were taught before we ever stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, and that there is a better place, a promised land. That the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, and that there is simply no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Page 40.
Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you? Majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders. Your children witnessed your sovereignty, the sea splitting before Moses and Miriam. This is our God, they cried. This is our God. Adonai shall reign forever and ever. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you, Adonai?
We don't often talk in the Jewish community about things that are supernatural. In fact, often when I have conversations with members of our extended community and they ask about Judaism, it's one of the first things I offer that, yes, there is space within our Jewish community for such conversations, but we don't often talk about things that we can't put down on paper. Things that aren't verifiable by hard science, but there are still elements and things that seem to be beyond our explanation. And one of them, I think, is a change in atmosphere. A feeling that comes over us as we celebrate our holidays. I like to think that the Shabbat candles have a little bit of a glow that is beyond just the light emitted from the wick and wax and chemical reaction that causes the flame to burn. There's a warmth there, created by whatever scientific way that we want to pin down. Okay, it's a feeling, it's people being together, it's memories, it's meaning, any one of those different things, but they never quite get to that change in feeling, that holy moment when we are fully within the wings of something eternal and we feel that Shabbat has arrived. We bless that presence with our next prayer on page 42.
42 and 43.
And 43, thank you, Cantor.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkiveinu Leshalom.
We continue now with the Amidah, the very center of our service, and traditionally this prayer has been offered silently. And so I mentioned that we're going to be doing a few things kind of outside of the box. One of them is we're going to be inviting us, after we offer the very first line of our prayer, to offer the rest of this particular part of our service together and in silence. So I invite us as we continue to find words that we might find inspiring on the pages to follow, or other words that we might find in our hearts. We know that there are many different prayers, many different voices of the soul. And in just a moment, after we offer our first line of this prayer, we'll be offering the prayer of silence. I invite us to turn to page 46 of our prayer books and to please rise in body or in spirit.
והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי, אדוני צורי וגואלי, וגואלי.
We gather for many reasons. We gather to celebrate, we gather to rest, and we gather to heal as well. I want to mention for anyone who's joining us online on Facebook or on YouTube, I want to offer a special welcome. And I want to mention that if you are able to switch over to our feed at tilb.org, there will be a slightly higher quality stream, but also if you would like to offer the names of those that you are thinking of this particular Shabbat, I invite you to do so, and we can offer their name aloud as we, as you offer them in the chat. This particular Shabbat, we gather because our hearts are heavy, not just for those who are in our immediate community, but those who are suffering around the world and in Ukraine. Our hearts are breaking. As those who walked those very same paths that many of our family, and certainly our collective family, have walked, are doing so under the threat of violence, of bombs. And so as we gather this particular Shabbat, first would like to offer as a healing for each and every one of us, for our hearts to offer strength to those who are in Ukraine, those under siege. May they find strength, may they find healing, and may they know that they are simply not alone. We are with them in heart and in spirit. We additionally, this particular Shabbat, think of those in our community, our more immediate community who are in need of healing. We have a pamphlet that's been available at the entrance to our sanctuary. I invite you to look through and see all who are in our community who are in need of healing. Our hope is that you might take this pamphlet home, and if there's anyone that you see on that list who you might know, to reach out to them. Healing takes many forms. Many of those forms come from a loving phone call from a friend. Together, we also think of those who have recently come onto our list of those in need of healing. Our hearts go out to Mike Broadsley, Joel Epstein, Chuck Leff, Harriet Reed, Michelle Samet, Arlene Lannon, Amanda Mark, and Lauren Rand. If you are joining us online, I'd like to invite you to share the names of those that you are thinking of in the chat now. And for those of us who are here in our sanctuary, I'd like to invite you to share the names of those you're thinking of as my eyes meet yours this evening. Michael Bausick, Ariana Scotti, Bambi Haggins, Ron Picard, Karen Feinberg, Leigh Shea, Miko Zander. We hold all of these people in our hearts as we offer these words of healing on page 253 of our prayer books. I mentioned that we were going to do a couple of things outside of the box this evening. There is a practice in the Hasidic community of offering a particular line from our tradition and offering it as not just a point of inspiration, but as something to focus on, to offer it over and over. And so we're going to draw a little bit from that tradition this evening. We're going to offer the words of Aleinu, but there is a line in the Aleinu, Ein od milvado. Ein od milvado literally means there is nothing but. It's hard to explain in the grammar of Hebrew. It basically says there's nothing but it. And I think that many people read this particular line as there is nothing but God. I think that there is another piece of this, and it's not exclusionary to the idea of God, but a reminder that each and every one of us are profoundly connected to the point where there is no division between any of the members of humanity. Each and every one of us, but for an accident of birth, might be any one of the other people in this world. Any one of us might be in Kiev at this moment. Yet we are here in Long Beach, and so we remind ourselves there is no division. Ein od milvado. There is nothing but our joint humanity. I invite us to turn to page 282 of our prayer books. Let's offer these words together. Please rise in body or in spirit.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים Adonai, Hu Elohim. Ein od milvado, ein od milvado Adonai, Hu Elohim. Ein od milvado Adonai, Hu Elohim. Ein od milvado Adonai, Hu Elohim.
Please be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those in our community who have died in recent days or in this season in years past. If you are joining us online, you'd like to share the names of those that you are thinking of in the chat on tilb.org. I'd like to invite you to share their names in the chat at this time. Together, our hearts go out to those members of our community who have suffered recent losses. And so as we remember Rick Weber, beloved brother of Susan Palitz, brother-in-law of Mark Palitz, who died on February 25th, our hearts go out to his family. His funeral will be taking place this Sunday on March 13th at Forest Lawn at 11 a.m. And Ramala Temkin, as we remember her, our hearts go out to those who are near to her, as she was the beloved mother of Linda Temkin Waltzman. Ramala died on Wednesday, March 9th. Her funeral will be taking place on Monday, March 14th at Hillside at 2 p.m. We additionally mark the yard site, the anniversary of the death of Rose Antiginas, Leo Aviram, Laura Beers, Bernard Bernstein, Jenny Blumberg, Esther Bosakowicz, Robert Burney, Stan Butler, Abraham Dorfman, Newman Dorr, Carla Phil, Joseph Finley, Leo Frankel, Helen Geller, Harold Golden, Zareen Green, Rita Haddow, Joan Hill, Ben Jones, Edith Jones, David Lensner, Dorothy Lerner, Edward Levy, Henry Liss, Leo Nalong, Bertha Lowenthal, Daniel Lubov, Ethel Markowitz, Marvin Merrick, Estelle Meyerson, Benjamin Newman, Doris Noble, Henry Orenstein, Robert Oster, Leah Perry, Marjorie Posner, Eleanor Prell, Myron Raftenberg, Alan Richmond, Ann Roth, Robert Selesky, Paul Schneider, Robin Schwartz, Norma Slavitt, Max Sogolo, Beatrice Stotland, Herbert Erling, and Frank Weinberger. If you are thinking of anyone in particular this Shabbat, you'd like to share their name aloud, I invite you to share their name as my eyes pass across the room. Eric Flam and Isaac Ben Hamero. I'd like to invite us now to turn to page 294 and to offer this prayer of mourning in one voice, Please rise in body or in spirit. Yitkadal, v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, v'yamad yivarach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'bizman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach leolam olmei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbachata v'nechamata, damiram be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim alenu v'al kol Yisrael, amen. Hosei shalom b'mromav, hu yasei shalom, alenu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol Yoshvei Tevel, v'imru, amen. Zichronam livracha, may the memories of those near to us always be a source of blessing. I invite us together to say, amen. I'd like to invite everyone to please be seated. We have some announcements, some of the things that are going on at Temple Israel. I am always amazed at how much takes place in the course of a week. It's my pleasure to call up Lori Arroyo to offer some announcements this evening.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's nice to see regulars and some of you who are not here quite as often. And I'd also like to take a moment to welcome Joe Goldman, the Los Angeles-based engagement director of HIAS, who's going to be leading us in a discussion later. So when I was thinking about doing the announcements today, and I looked over the list, and it's the regular things, and so it's nice to see not all the regular people. And also I was thinking that, so in our way, we are invited each day to look at the world fresh and new. And so although these things may appear to be the same as they are each week, when you participate, you make them new. On Saturday morning, we have Torah study with Rabbi Fox at 8:45. So most of our educational programming is under the heading of Joys of Jewish Learning. And well, I was going to say that what they present for us is amazing, but really it's what we do for ourselves that is really outstanding and life-affirming. On Monday morning at 9:45, we offer the class New Testament Study from a Jewish Perspective. On Wednesdays at 7 p.m., we have our Introduction to Judaism led by Rabbi Fox and Rabbi Michal Loving. Our Tanakh study group meets every Thursday at 10:15 a.m., and if you would like to participate, contact Martine Korak. Other programs or meetings of interest include our Men's Minyan Discussion Group, which meets every Tuesday at 9:30. You can contact Al and Lillian if you're interested. On Thursdays at 7:30, we have Meditative Morning Minyan Experience with our wonderful Bill Shafton, and that's available on Zoom. Next Saturday, March 19 at 11 a.m., we'll have our senior Shabbat and luncheon at the Alpert JCC. So this is a program that used to be here at Temple Israel, and then with COVID, it took a hiatus. And now it's at the JCC. It's wonderful to see us collaborating with the other Jewish institutions in our area so that everyone can get to meet and work with everyone else. I like that. Let's see. Join us as we celebrate our 98th birthday and Purim on Saturday, March 19 at 7:30. This year's Purim Spiel is Esther, a Persian musical, a special Hamilton-themed reenactment of the Purim story, talking about a mashup. Let's see. If you have a question about how to attend one of our classes or programs, look for the emails, call the temple office, or look for these people walking around with these badges that say they're on the board. They may know a little something, and even if you don't really want to know anything, maybe you just want a little conversation. We're available. I love to talk to people. So everyone, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shakoach, indeed. There is so much going on this week. Lori, thank you for not only sharing the details of those things, but helping us get inspired about them. I'm really looking forward to the Hamilton Purim spiel. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I've been sitting in all the rehearsals, and it's fun.
Well, before we go on with our service, I just want to offer a special thank you to Bill Shafton for offering his music. This particular Shabbat is always a gift, always such a gift to have you leading with us and bringing your music. I want to mention a couple other things as well. The first is that I want to offer a special welcome to Trip Oldenfield, who is I want to get the title right, Director of JFCS? CEO, I'm very sorry, CEO of Jewish Family and Children's Services of Long Beach. Welcome, we're very glad to have you here this particular Shabbat. We know that this is a particular Shabbat, not just beautiful and powerful for being a holiday of rest, a holiday of music, but this particular evening we have a guest speaker that we'll hear about more in just a minute, but I want to offer a special thank you as well to our Social Action Committee and to Paul Levitt for helping arrange this particular evening for all of us tonight as we can have an opportunity to learn and to discuss what's going on in the Ukraine, and a special welcome. You'll get more of a welcome in a little bit, Joe, but a special welcome to Joe as well from HIAS. This particular Shabbat, knowing that this is strong on our hearts, we have a very particular Adon Olam that we wanted to offer. When Cantor Cooper and I were talking about this evening, Cantor Cooper had an inspiration to offer a particular Adon Olam. Do you want to say a bit about it?
This Adon Olam, I found it recently online, and it is adapted by Cantor Sheldon Levin. It's to the tune of the Ukrainian national anthem. So I don't know if you'll be able to sing along quite at this point, but I think it would be nice for you to hear the melody. If I don't know the page, I didn't write that down. So if someone wants to find the page for me while I do the next thing,
I believe the page is 321.
Oh, that's awesome. See, I haven't been here long enough to memorize that. So I'd like to sing the special Adon Olam. Before I do, though, however, I wanted to read to you in English what the words are to the actual Ukraine national anthem. Ukraine is not yet lost, neither its glory nor freedom. Upon us, fellow Ukrainians, fate shall smile once more. Our enemies will vanish like the dew in the sun, and we shall rule, comrades, in a free land of our own. We'll lay down our souls and bodies to maintain our freedom, and we'll show that we, comrades, are of the Cossack nation. We'll stand for freedom. From the Cyane to the Dan, we will not allow others to rule in our homeland. No, wait, hold on. Let me make sure I got the right note here. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yatzir nivra le'ed nasa v'chefso kol azai melech shemo nigra ve'acharei kishlot hakol levado yimloch nora v'hu haya v'hu hove v'hu yihye betifara v'hu echad ve'en sheni lecham shilov lecha
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're going to take just a brief, a very short break, and then we'll begin our discussion in just a moment. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'd like to invite Paul Levitt up to tell me what he means by that hand gesture. Oh, the bread. Now, Paul, what is the? Do we have bread on Friday nights? No, you're absolutely right. So, to add some sweetness and sustenance, or to simply reflect the sweetness of being together on this holiday, I'd like to invite us to offer a blessing over our Kiddush wine and our challah. Thank you, Paul. Just hungry. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Do the whole thing?
No. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei puri hagafen l'chaim. L'chaim. You just pour it into mine.
Well, I understand that there has been a custom at Temple Israel of being somehow connected to the challah as a reminder, as an indication of the connectedness of our community, such as the challah is braided into one loaf. We are braided as one community, knowing that we are stronger because of it. And so I want to invite each of us to find a way to connect with anyone who might be near us. That might be simply being close by. I want to be respectful of needs in terms of COVID, or that might be placing a hand on a shoulder, whatever it might be. Let's offer this blessing together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon.
Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat
everyone.
Shalom.
Hey, thanks.
I was just stalling.
Oh, thank you, Kiki, very much.
Pull the volume down and wire it up. There we go. There it is. There. Okay, here we go.
You want me to introduce you, or are you good to go?
Well, it says that on my notes.
Well, that's just, I have that too. It's just to remind me of who I am.
Sure, you can open
No,
it. Well,
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're gonna get started now. I want to welcome for everyone who's joining us online. We're gonna start our conversation at this time. So I want to invite us to have a seat. We're gonna delve in now. We're gonna start this evening with a bit of learning, with a bit of conversation, learning, and then we're gonna have time for questions and answers afterwards. And so if and as you have questions, hold on to them. There will be an opportunity to ask, we'll have some discussion. And for everyone who's joining us online, we'll be able to see your questions as well. Not, again, on Facebook or on YouTube, but on tilb.org, we'll be able to see the questions that you have. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Levitt, the chair of our Social Action Committee, to introduce tonight's speaker.
Okay, well, I'm Paul Levitt. I'm the chair of the Social Action Committee here at Temple Israel. Thank you, Rabbi, for that brief introduction.
Paul was born on...
We lose the satellite in 5 minutes, Joe, so that's all you got. First of all, there are a lot of people to thank. And if I thank them all personally and individually, I would eat into Joe's time. But mostly, a special thanks to you, the congregation, both here in Temple and online, live television. It's always a fun place to be, because your presence here has shown that you are interested in this particular issue and would like not only to learn more, but to also maybe and potentially take some kind of action in this day and age. But first, a little housekeeping and how this is going to go. Joe will come up after me, and I'll try to wrap this up in the next 20 minutes or so. But as I was telling Rabbi, I don't know if it's harder to do a bar mitzvah or stand in front of the congregation and talk, but having never been bar mitzvah, but this is probably the next worst thing. So after I'm done, Joe will come up here and give about a 30-minute presentation followed by a Q&A. We encourage those people online to move over to tilb.org. Operators are standing by, where you can ask questions via the chat. The live audience will have microphones here. Please use them if you can. We will also have, at some point during when Joe is talking, I will post some links to some documents. We call them agency and action documents. It's a 2-page issue. It has some action items for individuals. It's got has a list of agencies that are providing services to refugees and immigrants. So I will post those online for the chat people online, and then this coming Monday, I will repost the links. So if you don't get them tonight or via chat, you can go to that email on Monday morning and pick them up that way. We also have Odette, a member of the Social Action Committee, will be standing at the doorway handing out paper copies. Fortunately, you have to retype all the URLs, which are about this long, but anyway. Okay, I think it says, I'm Paul Levitt, chair of this. That's the beginning. No. So with that, as I was thinking of how to put some of this in perspective, I thought about, I always like to use props. It's always good to use props. And this book is one of about 4 books that my mother in her retirement researched and wrote on the family, both sides of my mother and my father. And this particular volume is called The Whole Hotchkielewitz Schneerson Mishpucha. This is on sale at the bookstore outside. It makes great bedtime reading, by the way. But in here, she was able to document my family went back to about the 1800s, all the way back to, we have photographs of the Schneersons. It's all very old photograph. And but the reason I said that is that's where my family started. And my brother, I have two other brothers. My middle brother, in his COVID boredom, decided to take my mother's research data and create a PDF family tree. Okay. And these are all the people in the past, in the lives, and there's birth dates and children in the whole mishpucha, essentially. But I got to thinking that really, if you were to expand one of these charts, we probably would all be connected in some way or another. And in this day and age, I mean, COVID has had some interesting effects. I think one of them, for me, has been to realize how close we are as a world, and so highly connected to each other. Now in Torah says, welcome the stranger, something like 32, 36 times, right? It's the most quoted. Well, I'd like to chair a committee to figure out who to talk to change that phrase to embracing your neighbor. Because we're really all neighbors now. There are no boundaries, or the boundaries are so small. They're not really boundaries. They're not, I look at them, I was listening earlier and I jotted down entryways or gateways, because borders are two-way. In every country, every country has a border on all continents: North America, South America, Central America, Asia, Europe. Everywhere you go, there are borders, but the borders, they're two-way. My brother and his wife decided to sell everything and move and immigrate to Portugal and resettle. So it's not, there's a lot of movement around, and we're seeing a lot of this. Unfortunately, we are, in Ukraine, we are seeing something very brutal. But I think if there was something that I would like everybody to take away from tonight is to think about the universality of Joe's message. What happens to people wanting to move out and to somewhere else, change their roots, and how are we connected? And how can we embrace our neighbor in a much better fashion? Not only just for Ukraine, which is the topic of tonight, but there's still issues with the Afghanis going on, the Afghan refugees. It's happening in every continent: Central South America, North America, Canada, Europe, Asia. I'm sorry if I've left anything out, but people are on the move. People are on the move. And it's an interesting issue. So with that, I'll introduce Joe Goldman. Joe is the first ever Los Angeles-based Community Engagement Director for HIAS. It's the Hebrew Immigration AIDS Society, correct? HIAS, okay, well. The world's oldest and only Jewish refugee settlement agency. Prior to HIAS, Joe served as the Senior Policy Associate for Mazon, the Jewish response to hunger, focusing on strengthening the safety net for at-risk seniors, veterans, and college students. Before returning to his native Los Angeles, Joe spent several years working in the heart of the Bay Area's tumultuous local political environment, most recently as the Public Affairs and Civic Engagement Manager for San Francisco at the Jewish Community Relations Council. He staffed the late Mayor Edwin M. Lee's Cultural and Trade Mission to Israel and Palestine, ran numerous civic engagement programs, and oversaw crisis management for numerous JCRC partners. He holds, there's the back page, the most important part, maybe. He holds a Master's of Political Management and a bachelor's degree in political communication from the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. Please welcome, and it's my pleasure, Joe Goldman. You don't need my notes, do you?
It's all good. Thank you, Paul, and Shabbat Shalom. And Shabbat Shalom to everyone online, including my husband and at least my mother and a few others. What a blessing it is to be here with you in person, and thank you again for the warm introduction, and to everyone in the TILB community for welcoming me with opening arms tonight. I join you bearing the news that even before Ukraine, there were over 84.5 million forcibly displaced people around the globe, more than after World War II. Before February 24th, we were already in a precarious situation in which there was an unprecedented volume of human suffering. And now with Ukraine, the number of refugees has surged farther. Over 2.5 million people have fled Ukraine since Putin invaded just over 2 weeks ago. About 60% have gone to Poland, followed by Hungary, Moldova, Slovakia, and Romania. Nearly 2 million are internally displaced within Ukraine itself. This war sparked the largest refugee crisis in Europe since World War II, and perhaps the fastest forced displacement in human history. The UN estimates that an additional 5 million will leave the country, and up to 12 million will need humanitarian aid within Ukraine. The escalation of the conflict is resulting in devastating humanitarian consequences. Food and medical supplies are running out. Older people, people with disabilities, and children are especially vulnerable. Child protection and mental health, along with lack of cash in rural areas, are the most pressing concerns. LGBTQ people are at severe risk wherever Putin's army advances. With men aged 18 to 60 banned from leaving the country, those fleeing are women, children, and older people. HIAS is no stranger to Ukraine. In fact, it was the Tsarist anti-Semitic pogroms in the 1880s and what is now Ukraine that sparked HIAS's creation, because the Jewish community mobilized out of existential necessity to help our people reach shelter, safety, and self-sufficiency out of harm's way. And yet, even as we've grown into an agency spanning 5 continents and 17 countries, our commitment to Ukraine has never wavered. We've helped people flee pogroms, Nazis, Soviets, and Putin's invasion of the Donbas and Crimea in 2014. In 2001, HIAS established an office in Kyiv to help Ukrainian Jews and other religious minorities seeking to migrate to the United States, and later began assisting people from across the Middle East, Africa, and East Asia seeking asylum in Ukraine. In 2014, we transformed our HIAS Ukraine office into Right to Protection, R2P, an independent Ukrainian NGO providing legal and humanitarian aid to those internally displaced from Putin's first Ukraine invasion, with 10 offices across the country and 162 staffers. Many of the asylum seekers they served from outside of Europe are now experiencing well-documented racial discrimination within Ukraine and its neighbors while trying to seek safety from Russia. HIAS and R2P continue to fiercely advocate for and support them. R2P remains an inextricable part of the HIAS family. Most R2P staff are located to Lviv and elsewhere in Western Ukraine. HIAS serves as R2P's primary fundraiser and representative abroad so they can focus on serving its clients within Ukraine's borders as much as possible. Less than 24 hours after the invasion, HIAS, along with many of our key partners, immediately advocated for the Biden administration to designate Ukraine for temporary protected status, TPS, for 18 months. Exactly 1 week later, the Department of Homeland Security announced the policy which ensures that no one will be deported to Ukraine. The EU has also done the same. In under 48 hours after the invasion began, HIAS established partnerships with Jewish community organizations in Moldova to ensure that they have the infrastructure to welcome refugees. By the end of that week, we formalized partnerships in Poland and Slovakia, and we continue collaboration with Jewish communities in other neighboring countries. On February 28th, HIAS deployed our emergency response experts to conduct humanitarian assessment at the Polish-Ukrainian border to work effectively with our European staff and Jewish community leadership to identify longer-term, continent-wide responses. And as I speak tonight, HIAS is Senior Director of Emergency Responses in Western Ukraine to further assess how we can best support R2P and its many clients. Every dollar going towards HIAS's Ukraine response empowers our efforts in Ukraine's neighbors, R2P within Ukraine, and especially local Jewish community actions to support displaced Ukrainians. It ensures that we work with our partners on the ground in offering humanitarian needs by providing guidance and support in areas of economic inclusion, including cash assistance, mental health support, prevention of domestic violence, and protection of women, girls, and LGBTQ people. We're seeing countries that Jews once fled transform into safe havens for those seeking refuge, Jews and non-Jews alike. Polish Jewish communities dropped the Refugee Shabbat programming in order to devote more time to their work on the ground. HIAS partnered with leaders such as the Chief Orthodox Rabbi of Poland to coordinate transportation and housing for displaced Ukrainians. The world-renowned Jewish Community Center in Krakow mobilized to collect essential items like food, diapers, and medicine, and turn their building into refugee housing. As their director of programming put it, now we are having a Refugee Shabbat 24/7. This morning, the UN's Slovakia ambassador convened a breakfast for HIAS to meet with the UN ambassadors of Ukraine, Moldova, Poland, Hungary, and Romania, alongside representatives of Jewish communities from each country, which skew heavily Orthodox, and demonstrated the key role that HIAS plays as a partner with diverse Jewish community response, not just the conventional social justice mindset, although I think we're pretty awesome, to address this crisis. Just yesterday, HIAS and the European Council of Jewish Communities held a continent-wide briefing to empower all of Europe's Jewish community to mobilize to welcome refugees. In fact, both my boss and my vice president will be heading to France in a few weeks to lead a 2-day in-person training with Jewish community leaders on the enormous success of HIAS Welcome Circles here in the United States and how they can learn from and replicate our experience with Ukrainian refugees. More on Welcome Circles later. In Israel, a country we proudly helped establish by assisting in every wave of Aliyah and home to our first non-US office abroad, we successfully advocated to overturn efforts by the current government to deny refuge to non-Jewish Ukrainians in ways that would complicate how some families make Aliyah and keeping families in Israel apart from loved ones. Israel required non-Jewish Ukrainians seeking shelter with their families in the country to set aside $3,000 in an account and promise not to permanently settle there. For those who might not be as familiar, Israel is home to upwards of 1 million Jews from the former Soviet Union and tens of thousands of non-Jews who are their relatives, thus meaning that there are many non-Jewish Ukrainians rushing to Israel for safety. While we're grateful that Israel overturned the worst of the policies, thousands of Ukrainian refugees are experiencing callous treatment at Ben Gurion Airport. Refugees were separated into 2 lines, one for Jews and one for non-Jews. And many refugees were originally stranded at the airport for days without help. I'm relieved to share that thousands of Israelis of all backgrounds have taken to the streets to demand more humane treatment and that change is on the way. This assault on Ukrainians with loved ones in Israel undermines not just the values enshrined in Israel's Declaration of Independence, but its own obligations as a signatory of the 1951 UN Geneva Convention on Refugees. We know that Israel is in a very difficult situation with Russian soldiers based in Syria on its northern border, and preparations for a massive wave of Aliyah, not seen since the days of Prime Minister Shamir and Rabin. And thank God we have Israel today, as tens of thousands are applying for Aliyah in the wake of this war. Like any country we operate in, and I say so personally as a proud Zionist who has gone to Israel 8 times in the past 13 years, including this past November, we expect Israel to do the bare minimum of its own stated commitments to its own citizens and the international treaties it signed. Ukraine is home to 44 million people and roughly 200,000 to 400,000 Jews, depending on how you count. It's home to the 7th largest Jewish community on the planet. The pin I'm wearing says, "My people were refugees too." And how it breaks me to say that my people are refugees again. And I want to make one point abundantly clear. HIAS and our partners on the ground will work day and night to help every person fleeing Ukraine, Jews and non-Jews alike. They must get access to the safety and refuge they deserve. There are too many who view this work as an either-or proposition, but at HIAS it is and always will be moving forward a both-and. Most of the solutions to help Jews and non-Jews are the same. Whether a refugee simply wants to get to Poland or go to Israel, they all must travel by land to escape Ukraine. Ukraine, called Ukraina in both Ukrainian and Russian, literally means borderland. Yes, geographically, it means the borderland of many different empires that ruled over it, from Russians to Poles to back to Russians, then Soviets, then Nazis, then Soviets again. It's also the borderland of fragile democracy and authoritarianism. Just as Israel literally translates to struggle with God, I see another meaning with Ukraine for the Jewish community today. We are confronting the borderlands of our own emotional and intellectual challenges as Jews, of recognizing the need to stand up for our own people and for others. We're at the borderlands of the universalist and particularist experiences that shape Jewish history, culture, and values. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, the Jewish grandson of a Holocaust survivor who was elected by over 73% of Ukrainians in a fair election, lives both literally and figuratively in those borderlands. As a Jew, I take great pride in Zelensky, fighting for his own diaspora country, proving that we Jews can be accepted and admired by billions around the globe and inspire fear in authoritarian dictators. If Zelensky can fight for Ukrainians of all backgrounds, of Jews and non-Jews, then so can we. Months before any one of us who isn't in the CIA knew of imminent threat to Ukraine, our community mobilized to welcome the stranger. In addition to working with HIAS resettlement partners, a whopping 32 congregations and organizations across the country have organized to resettle Afghans through private sponsorship, getting to the very heart of balancing those two approaches in the borderlands of Jewish life. Why? Because it's part of who we are as Jews. To pull from Hatikva, welcoming the stranger gets to the core of Nefesh Yehudi, the soul of the Jew, and it gets right to the heart of who we are as Americans, too. We have an obligation to welcome the stranger, especially those who put their lives on the line for our country, for NATO, and humanitarian NGOs over the past 2 decades. Even if Afghanistan isn't grabbing the headlines like it once did, its refugees are just as important as Ukraine's. Don't you forget that. And frankly, it's important to understand why HIAS welcome circles helping Afghans are so important, especially if we do have a future surge of Ukrainian refugees. Let's look at some numbers and history for some greater context, and I promise I won't quiz you later. Our resettlement system was gutted under the previous administration. In the 2020 to 2021 fiscal year, we only welcomed 11,000 refugees, down from a bipartisan average of 95,000. Yes, now we have a pro-refugee administration, which reset refugee admissions to 125,000 for the new fiscal year that began on October 1st, meaning that critical funding would be released to NGOs like HIAS and our partners to hire case managers, social workers, translators, and others in the public-private partnership that defines refugee resettlement. And then we could go off into the sunset, rebuild the system, and live happily ever after. Except that's definitely not what happened. Kabul fell in mid-August, 6 weeks before the new fiscal year, and the administration did not have an evacuation plan. Though granted humanitarian parole or special immigrant visa status, these Afghans don't even count towards the 125,000 that the government planned for. Normally, a resettlement agency has a lead of at least 10 days to 3 weeks before new clients arrive. Instead, we had 76,000 people get airlifted out of Afghanistan all at once, most of them well before a single agency could staff up. And at HIAS, we had dozens of colleagues drop everything to go into emergency deployment on emergency bases, just to process and support Afghans who had gone through such a fast and traumatic experience. My team of 10 went down to 3 during this time. Resettling so many people in a short period of time is unprecedented in recent US history and has strained our resettlement system. So a solution known as sponsor circles is being pioneered across the United States, modeled on private sponsorships that are wildly popular in Canada. With deep experience in refugee resettlement and honed strategies for educating, organizing, and mobilizing the Jewish community, HIAS launched HIAS Welcome Circles. HIAS Welcome Circles are made up of groups centered generally around congregations and other Jewish organizations of 5 to 8 people who will have close contact with Afghans they are sponsoring. Participants are expected to commit a minimum of 6 months of support, whereas agencies only have to do 90 days. To help Afghan refugees as they begin to settle into new communities. HIAS Welcome Circle members have met Afghan rivals at the airport, organized to provide housing and furnishings, help find jobs, register children for schools, signed up individuals for public benefits such as TANF, SNAP, and Medi-Cal, among many other responsibilities. HIAS Welcome Circles in Southern California each raise a minimum of $20,000, money that stays in-house, not with HIAS, in order to meet the cost of living needs, access in-kind support, and many other factors. HIAS has liaisons working with each circle, providing key technical support along the way, both one-on-one and in weekly office hours with all the circles. And of course, all 13 Welcome Circles in Southern California are connected to ensure continual sharing of resources and learning opportunities. NCJW of Long Beach and West Orange County has formed a Welcome Circle, and they will be matched with an Afghan family soon, so please be sure to support them. Forming a HIAS Welcome Circle is a massive act of tzedakah, not just for the Afghans themselves, but for the entire refugee resettlement system that needs outside help to lessen the strain so it could properly serve those who have fled to our shores, especially in today's turbulent world. So where do we go from here? What do we do to continue welcoming the stranger when so many crises loom large? Normally, I would come to you with lots of advocacy requests, but right now, financial assistance is the primary need for Ukraine, full stop. Supply chains already exist in Ukraine's bordering countries to procure the products needed to serve refugees. The last thing that HIAS, R2P, and virtually any other humanitarian agency, and I know I was just on a panel with UNICEF the other day, they'll say the same thing. The last thing we all need is the logistical burden for our staff in the region of airlifting goods and trying to get access to all those things. So please visit hias.org to support our work today. That's HIAS.org. In addition to directly funding HIAS's work on both sides of the Ukrainian border, We do have some advocacy asks coming. While the Biden administration and Congress just provided a great deal of funding for humanitarian response in Ukraine and surrounding countries, we are asking them to commit to resettlement, particularly for people who have close family ties in the United States. We are also asking the Biden administration to prepare to welcome Ukrainians who are seeking asylum, including at the US-Mexico border. They are not the only people who need this protection. The Biden administration must rescind Title 42, a deplorable policy from the previous administration that denies the right to asylum in the name of stopping the pandemic, even though US citizens can cross the border in either direction at any time, regardless of epidemiology. Speaking of which, members of Congress have already begun to speak out against Title 42, especially in the last few days. We are glad to see it, and we hope that you ask your members of Congress to do the same, if they haven't already, as part of putting an end to this policy. While we're pushing for resettlement plans, we're not mobilizing for mass migration of Ukrainians to the United States just yet. It's simply too early at this point in the crisis, and that's where it's fundamentally different from Afghanistan. That day may come, but we first and foremost must provide for the immediate emergency needs and hope for Ukrainians' sake that they can go home. If the weeks ahead prove that return is not an option, then we will support Ukrainians in the second countries to which they fled, and for those who need assistance resettling in a third country like the US or anywhere else. And we will certainly keep you informed because we will definitely need your help. And we must use this moment to apply the same humanity in which we view white and often Jewish Ukrainians to refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants of all backgrounds. In addition to Title 42, we cannot forget that the Biden administration has denied TPS status for Cameroonians, Mauritanians, Hondurans, Nicaraguans, Guatemalans, and Salvadorians. Our country continues to deport and deny asylum seekers at extraordinarily high rates, sending over 1 million people back into harm's way each year. And for years, HIAS has fought Europe's tendency to drag its feet and or outright deny refuge to non-white people fleeing not just Ukraine, but conflicts from around the world. For example, Denmark isn't even making Ukrainian refugees fleeing Putin's armies go through the refugee or asylum process, while it's forcing Syrians to return to harm's way under Assad's regime, which is fully armed by, you guessed it, Putin's military. The time to end racist policies and actions against those seeking safety and shelter from conflict, discrimination, and expulsion is now. As we navigate the borderlands of these uncertain times, may we feel strength in our Jewish identity, our history, and our culture. Welcoming the stranger is who we are. Shabbat Shalom.
No, it's time for question and answer at this point. Okay. Does anybody have anything? Going once, going twice. Action. Any questions? Any questions for Joe? Cheryl?
Am I correct in assuming that the documentation that will be handed out to us as we leave will have specific places that we can donate money or contact people if we want to be a part of one of these circles?
So for the welcome circles, I need to be in touch with folks, but NCJW folks are here also. So raise your hand if you're active in NCJW. Please talk to them. Great. We have a lot of NCJW people. So when it's time to talk to them, for donations, any HIAS link you see, it will also take you right to our website, so it'll be very easy.
Okay, there we go.
Well, as an animal lover, I know some people feel their animals are family, and I'm wondering if you accept people that bring their animal with them.
Of course. Of course we do, and there's plenty of footage. You see, it's not whether or not we would accept anyone with animals, it's if they're able to bring their animals with them as they escape the country.
Okay.
I'm part of the Welcome Circle for Afghan families that we're waiting for. We're waiting patiently. But we will really need more people to help with this family. So you can go on to HIAS and get cleared security so that you can help with them. There's a whole little process.
Yeah,
We're
we
gonna
will
need
need to
more
connect you
help
with
with
the
this family.
circle lead, and it's a little more complicated than that, but but yes.
And we will need donations and all kinds of stuff. So we're really excited, but once this family comes, we'll have about 5 minutes. So we'll need everybody's support. I'm really nervous about it.
Anybody else?
Okay, she'll talk.
Okay. Anybody else? Sandra? Oh, you got a microphone behind you.
Streaming. I'm Andrea Friedenthal. I'm the VP of Community Services for the local NCJW chapter. We missed the first wave for the Welcome Circle. The rest of the families are coming from other countries and are not here in the United States yet. However, there are a lot of other Afghans here that need help immediately. There's 30 families with kids housed temporarily at LAX. They need technology. They need to be being able to get on the internet, whether it's phones, use laptops, money to buy that stuff. They're setting up a work reference thing so they can start getting jobs. They have come over without the help of HIAS. So they came over with like $2,000 worth of funding, and they have about 2 weeks left of their temporary shelter. So there's children, they need clothes. In our last weekly social action email, there was a bunch of information along with my contact information, and I can put you immediately in touch with what the needs are and what to do about it right now. So call me.
Yeah, and what was shared just now is a consequence of the stretched resettlement system. They are those are folks who are resettled by other agencies who do not have the capacity. This is why HIAS Welcome Circles were formed, because anyone who's in the circles, who is being resettled by a circle, is not going to go through that. And we are looking at having 3,500 Afghans coming from U.S. military bases and other countries, and they are starting to be matched with people as soon as this week. And so, it's still an ongoing process. Both NCJW of Long Beach and also Stephen Wise Temple up in LA, these are the two circles in the region that still haven't been matched, but we still have new ones coming online in LA and Orange County. So we're really mobilizing for another wave. So it's happening, and it's very soon.
So we've heard on the news in terms of it looks like shortages of food and shortages of medicine within Ukraine. And with HIAS being there, how does our money able them to be able to purchase and be able to serve those needs?
Because we have partners on the ground in Poland, Slovakia, and Moldova who are working in direct coordination with R2P in Ukraine. And so along with other international partners that are working on some of those supply chains, like pretty much the UN is coordinating all of its agencies to start, to try to bring in more of those resources. The main inhibition to getting those resources to anyone, and you would find this from any agency, not just HIAS, is when Putin's army decides to shoot at civilian populations. That's the biggest inhibition. Otherwise, the supply chains are there. And people are getting access, particularly once they are out of country, but those pipelines are being developed. It's a lot easier to get things to places like Lviv and other parts of West Ukraine, but it is much harder to get further afield to places like Kyiv and Dnipro and Kharkiv and so on.
I'm curious, in the circles you move in the United States, what the temperature of anti-refugee rhetoric is. So that's the first part of my question. And then what advice do you have you're preaching to the choir, I think you know, right? So what advice do you have for me when I encounter somebody who is anti-refugee in terms of talking to them?
I will say this. When we started the HIAS Welcome Circles, and this is a really great question, we thought at most there'd be 2 or 3 in greater Southern California, okay? Because we're asking people to do a lot. And as someone who has dealt a lot with Israel in my career and with the Jewish community and worked at the nexus of the American Jewish community and politics, I have never found a more unifying issue than this one in comparison to virtually anything else, because no matter what your opinion is on Medinat Yisrael, on the state of Israel, it is no longer a unifying glue for a lot of our community. And this issue, in comparison, I could be meeting with folks who are regular synagogue goers, like many of you, or someone who hasn't set foot in a synagogue in over 30 years, who is also Jewish, and the minute they start talking about this issue, they start talking Jewish. And also, you know, and I think a lot of the folks who might be anti-refugee, if they're within the Jewish community, I like to remind folks that the entire refugee resettlement system was created in the 1951 UN Geneva Convention, which was in direct response to what happened to Jews in the Shoah. It was created because Jews had no means to be able to pick up and flee to somewhere else. And our own Jewish community in California, when you think about all the waves of immigration from Iran, from the former Soviet Union, from Holocaust survivors, because the most got here not immediately after the war, but in the 1950s. And also, by the way, Israelis, because they were, and HIAS helped resettle them, they were able to be resettled in the state of Israel because of that international system that was established after what happened to Jews. And I think a lot of people don't know that history. And then there are some people that just, they're going to buy into a lot of racist beliefs about, oh, you know, these were different immigrants, they're different now, and we're never going to win those people, and that's okay. It's too bad, but it's okay.
Joe, hi. Thank you so much for being here, for your energy, your commitment, your enthusiasm. It really means a lot. I'm wondering what services your office will provide for the future. So I understand there are welcome circles, and I know that NCJW is really close to getting at least one family. But what about for the future? What will HIAS provide for the greater community in terms of communication, office staff, beginning to look at more waves of refugees?
So to be clear, I am the only outward-facing California-based staffer for all of HIAS. And I worked from home even before the pandemic. But where we do work, when it comes to potentially expanding to have more affiliate partners, one of the things that we do where my department is instrumental is we make sure that all the Jewish community in any area where we have an official agency partnership, that the Jewish community is connected with that agency. We work part and parcel with that. You are not seeing, for example, in the Bay Area or San Diego where we have resettlement, situations like what was raised for LAX with people sitting there, you know, in hotel rooms. There are no HIAS clients in the state of California who are going through this, whether it's with an agency or through a welcome circle. And that is because we're making sure that the same kinds of resources that a welcome circle may have can be provided directly with the agencies as they see fit. So JFCS East Bay, JFS Silicon Valley, and of course Rockstars down at JFS San Diego.
So what you're saying is there's potential for an agency in the Long Beach area to be that agency to provide services.
I would love that.
So would I.
You know, I have a question about we're getting pummeled now by so many different organizations to donate money to help Ukraine. It's so hard to tell who to give the money to. And so I'm wondering how you're partnering with other Jewish organizations. Like this morning my family donated money to the Jewish Federation Crisis for Ukraine. I'm wondering, do you work with them at all, or is it a totally separate way that the money goes?
So I can't speak if it's particular to the Long Beach Federation. I can't speak to that. What I can say is this. We are working with all refugees. And so we are in talks with JFNA, so the big, umbrella of federations. UJA New York funds a lot of our work. It's all important. It's all important. I do believe that if you're looking to see, it says something when the Jewish communities in the 4 countries that we're operating in come to us first to mobilize because they want to work with not just Jews who are fleeing. I think that says a lot about where the money is going and how it's empowering the Jewish communities and helping refugees all at once. But the work that you're seeing funded by Federation that are often just Jews specific are also really important. And so this is not me saying don't give to Federation. This is give to them and to us if you can.
Firstly, thank you so much for for what you're doing, the purpose and the impact that you're making. I work for, we do corporate relocation. We work with the Fortune 500. So our company actually, we moved Americans out of Ukraine when Biden administration said to do so. Within hours of the bombing, we were moving European contractors out to the border cities, and we were getting hotels and just putting a bunch of people there. We have some resources. So for example, one of the global security teams of one of our clients yesterday was telling us that they have a bus from Kiev that's leaving every Friday, 75 seats. They're ready to take people to the Polish border. If if you're interested in that type of resource, I can connect you.
Thank you.
We also have language and cross-cultural training partners who are now doing services for people leaving Ukraine. Again, and they're right now doing for pro bono, so that would be another resource. And in addition, we work with we have a partner in San Francisco called Upwardly Global. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they work with refugees who are professionals.
Yep.
To connect them back with their profession here in the U.S. So how could I get some of these resources that we're currently using with our clients to you folks, if that is of interest?
I'm literally joe.goldman@hias.org. Very easy. And others here easily can get that email to you so that share that with me and I can filter for our agency.
Operators are standing by.
Okay, I'm Sherry Sinaga. I'll connect with you.
Any more? Last call. You'd like to do some remarks or? I know. Well, normally, it's tradition to give something special to someone special, like Joe, but we don't have a plaque, or a Torah, or a yad, but I think we have commitment, or at least we have some connections, which is what happened in it.
I don't know if people know our history.
Yeah.
We lent a Torah to Lvov, 12, 15 years ago? And we lent it in case there was a crisis so that it could not be taken by the Soviets, the Nazis, whoever the new pogrom would be. And so we have a connection.
Yeah. And there are other connections too. And that I think is more valuable than a plaque. It's really a call to action. And that's really what it's all about. And once again, thank you, Joe. I'll turn it over to Rabbi for some closing remarks. Why not?
Take it up to also seeing a look and not being sure.
Right.
So first of all, thank you to Joe. I want to invite us to give another round of applause to Joe for inspiring us this evening. I think that often action and often change happens and starts with agitation. And I appreciate you bringing all of these things that rightfully should move our hearts and make us feel a little bit uncomfortable, even as we sit here on Shabbat, as we sit here on a day of rest, a holy day. We know that there are two different kinds of Shabbat. The Shabbat that we sit and rest and find a place of healing, and the Shabbat where we sit and step back and examine this world and find with deep and utter clarity the work that needs to be done. Thank you for helping to bring us into the latter of those Shabbats, for agitating us, for bringing our hearts to a place where we are ready to move. We are together, we are with you, and we're looking forward to doing good work. Shabbat shalom, everyone.